At first glance, a royal harem sounds like paradise: silk cushions, scented air, musical fountains, and the favor of the most powerful men on earth. But beneath the surface, these palaces of pleasure were far from romantic. They were psychological prisons, engineered to break identity, control emotion, and rewrite desire into obedience. Let's begin with the most infamous example, the imperial harem of the Ottoman Empire. Located within the vast Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, the outer world believed it was filled with pampered women living in beauty and bliss. But reality told a different story. The harem was a fortress of flesh. A sealed compound guarded by eunuchs cut off from the outside world. No man except the sultan could enter, no woman could leave without permission. These girls were often bought, captured, or gifted from distant lands: Georgia, Circassia, Armenia, Hungary. Many were abducted in their early teens and renamed on arrival. Their old identity was erased. No past, no home, no choice. Why? Because control is easiest when the person being controlled has nothing left to fight for. The psychological structure of the harem was a masterclass in obedience training. Newcomers called Asimi girls lived in isolation for months, learning court rituals, language, music, and complete submission. They were not allowed to speak unless spoken to, and any sign of resistance was met with silence, starvation, or in rare cases, sudden disappearance. And yet, the dream of rising to become a Cadden official consort, or even valid sultan queen mother, kept them competing, not resisting. This is what psychologists now call a trauma-bonded hierarchy, abuse wrapped in the illusion of reward. Imagine a girl, stolen at 13, who suddenly finds herself surrounded by women who smile with painted lips but speak with sharpened tongues. She is taught that beauty is currency, and obedience is survival. Over time, her sense of self doesn't just disappear, it fragments. Inside this system, the women didn't just fear the guards. They feared each other. Sabotage was common. Rival concubines were known to poison perfumes, rip dresses, plant lies. Any sign of favor from the sultan could turn a sister into a silent assassin. This internal division was by design: divide and rule. And then there was the test of the bedchamber. Every night, a eunuch would place a small note in the sultan's slipper. The name written on it was the chosen concubine for that night. The woman had to be washed, perfumed, inspected, and sent silently to the emperor's bed. If she failed to please him, she might never be summoned again. If she succeeded, she could rise. But pleasure was never the point. It was always about performance. Now imagine the psychological damage of being reduced to a body with a smile, trained to ignore pain, suppress emotion, and fake desire on command. And this wasn't unique to the Ottomans. In Mughal India, the Zanana, a similar harem system, kept hundreds of women confined in labyrinthine chambers behind thick stone walls. Though richly dressed and fed, they were eternally watched by a special guard of eunuchs and female sentries. Mirrors were everywhere, not for beauty, but for surveillance. The emperor could observe them from secret passageways. Even there, laughter could be recorded as disobedience if it came at the wrong time. One Mughal ruler, Jahangir, was known to gift concubines peacocks covered in jewels, not as love, but as proof of control. He once ordered a dancer who laughed at the wrong moment to be sealed in a chamber with snakes. This wasn't seduction. This was domination dressed in velvet. Psychologically, these women began to live in two realities: the fantasy they had to perform, and the fear that crawled beneath it. Modern psychologists call this emotional dissociation, when the mind detaches from the body in order to survive trauma. Many concubines lost touch with their real identities, their mother tongues, even their sense of time. They lived for years without ever seeing the sky. And then came the selective cruelty. Punishment in harems wasn't just physical, it was theatrical. A concubine who spoke out of turn might be forced to kneel for hours in front of others. A woman caught conspiring might be drowned in a velvet sack, thrown into the Bosphorus at night. No splash, no scream. The message was clear: you are beautiful, but disposable. But here's the darkest twist. Over time, many women began to internalize the cruelty. The abused became enforcers. Elder concubines trained the new ones with the same sharp hands and empty voices that once hurt them. Some even found pride in their power to select and punish. This is the final layer of psychological collapse. When the prisoner starts to defend the prison. By the time a girl became a senior concubine, her soul was often unrecognizable. She might smile during executions, whisper poison into the ears of rivals, or volunteer to spy on her friends, not because she was evil, but because power was the only freedom she was allowed. The royal harem was never just a place of pleasure, it was a theater of power. And when absolute power is given to one man, or to a system built on silence and submission, it often mutates into something far darker. In this chapter, we enter the realm where pleasure was no longer desired, but corrupted into punishment. Here, Harems didn't just suppress identity, they destroyed it. Let's begin with Sultan Ibrahim, the first of the Ottoman Empire. Nicknamed Ibrahim the Mad, his reign in the 17th century marked one of the darkest turns in harem history. At first, he indulged in excess, surrounding himself with hundreds of concubines, commissioning silk cushions and mirrored ceilings for his pleasure chambers. But soon, his lust turned obsessive, and then violent. Ibrahim reportedly developed a fixation on obesity, demanding that the palace find him the largest woman in the empire. A concubine named Shikirper, said to weigh over 300 pounds, became his favorite, but she wasn't loved. She was collected like a rare item. He kept her in isolation, controlling her food, her time, even her speech. And when she fell from favor, she was discarded like the rest. That wasn't the worst of it. One day, in a fit of paranoia, Ibrahim suspected that some of his concubines had been unfaithful. His solution: he ordered all 280 women in his harem to be drowned in the Bosphorus. They were thrown into the water, weighted down, never to be seen again. Their crime: not obedience, but existing without pleasing him enough. This is psychosexual sadism in pure form, where pleasure is no longer linked to desire, but to domination, humiliation, and destruction. And such behavior wasn't limited to sultans. Sometimes, women inside the harem turned crueler than the men they once feared. Take the example of valid Sultan Kaiksum, mother of Ibrahim. Once a concubine herself, Kaiksum rose to ultimate power as queen mother. But instead of liberating the women in the harem, she became its strictest enforcer. She installed surveillance systems, punished women for minor offenses, and controlled who was allowed to visit the sultan's bed. Those who defied her were whipped or exiled. Kaiksum even ordered secret executions when she felt threatened, including that of a young concubine rumored to carry the sultan's heir. Her cruelty wasn't born from madness, it was born from survival. She knew the harem was a battlefield, and in a place where beauty could make you powerful, jealousy became lethal. Then there's the case of the Chinese imperial harems, especially during the Ming dynasty. Inside the Forbidden City, thousands of concubines lived under rigid control. Every step, word, and breath was recorded. Many were castrated male eunuchs, tasked with guarding and managing these women, but even they were subject to terror. Emperor Jinde, for instance, was known for his sexual excess and bizarre cruelty. He once filled an artificial pleasure island with wine fountains and naked servants, forcing concubines to compete in humiliating sexual games, with the losers publicly beaten. Those who cried or resisted were whipped with golden rods, a punishment, both theatrical and symbolic. But even darker was the fate of those who aged out of favor. In many harems, once a woman passed her prime or displeased the emperor, she was silently relocated to cold chambers where she lived in emotional death. No contact, no recognition, just endless waiting. Some went mad, others took their own lives. This slow erosion of the soul is called institutional trauma. Psychologically, it's the equivalent of long-term torture, the breaking down of autonomy, identity, and emotional resilience. These women were kept alive, but stripped of meaning. In rare cases, concubines became monsters themselves. Lady Rakuo, though fictionalized in Japanese literature, is based on real archetypes, women so consumed by jealousy and abandonment that they lashed out through violence, manipulation, and even spiritual revenge. In real history,